Hi everybody, welcome to ArtDay. Let's get ready, shall we? For preparation for this particular painting, I did transfer my design to the watercolor paper and then inked up all the lines and then put on some masking fluid because I wanted to protect those areas since they're going to be way lighter than anything around it. So she is a magician and she's she has a lot of black in her, and magic for me associates with the colors blue, turquoise, purple, gray, and black. So I went with a background that is blue, purple, and black, or dark gray, but I think I actually used black. No, I use Payne's gray and black in combo. So I did do a very loose watercoloring background here, just dropping in color, first blue and purple, and then speckled in some of the black. I wanted the blue and purple to shine through, but to also be partially covered up with black and let the paint do its thing and make it flow and such. So I used a lot of water, had damp paper beforehand, and then dropped in the watercolor paint with a lot of water there. So that was the background. And for me not to have everything covered up, I used the masking fluid to keep some of the paper white underneath. And that's actually going to be one of the final parts I'm going to do, peeling off that masking fluid and painting the paint underneath. So I had a little seepage underneath my masking tape, so I just blotted it off very carefully and dried everything off. And I did cut the paper in two pieces and got rid of that uneven edge like that. So she is the fourth character I painted for my DSA group. So she is also in the fantasy world and being part of our adventurous group. Also blotting off some of the color there. It's not all gonna be black and gray with her, but there's gonna be a lot of black. But let's start off with painting her hair. So she has blonde hair. The description the game master gave me that she is 1.59 meters tall, or small, whatever you want to call it. And she has about 70 kilos. So she's a little short, a little more rounded, plump kind of magician. That's why her character picture is so much smaller than all the others. Just to show, well, how tiny she actually is in comparison to all the others. She's of Caucasian skin, so I used my Albrecht Dürer skin tones to color in her skin, make it, well, look not too dark, more on the very light part of the spectrum of white skin tones. And she, when she has her cloak wrapped around her, she actually has a lot of black and gray only visible. And that was boring to me and kind of weird when it came to painting. So I decided to paint her with the cloak wrapped behind her shoulders and have lots of her armor and clothing visible. So I added quite a bit of the Prussian blue for the accessories or the highlights, the color that has to stand out. Because it will repeat in the magical dust that is current, or fog that is currently covered up with the masking fluid. But I didn't want her to be just, you know, black all around and kind of flat. So I decided to introduce some other colors into her clothing and armor, but have the cloak be black and Payne's gray. So for the outer part of the cloak, I definitely used black. I wanted it to be very dark, very saturated, not a lot of water using when painting that part. And on the inner part of the cloak, like between her legs, I used way more water, and I used Payne's gray instead of black, and that gave a very subtle but very lovely difference between and made it a little more contrasty, if you know what I mean. So just the very tiny difference between Payne's gray and black, and having a lot of water or only a little water, made all the difference there. I chose yellow ochre as the brown tones because it would fit a little better in my mind with the blue than, say, the very dark sepia brown that I used on previous armors, like on the right hand side on the warrior. It just fit a little better, and I could introduce other brown tones like the burnt umber here, for example, for the pants, and it would not look too dark, too gloomy. I wanted the blue and the yellow ochre to kind of stand out in the end, and not to have too many shades of brown in there, but focus on like I'd say maximum 5 main colors. This is something I do a lot when painting, like using maximum 5 main colors. I have color repetition, of course, throughout the paintings, and make these 5 work together very well, and then maybe have one color that is sort of popping. In this case, in the background, it would be the purple. It's very subtle, but it is still kind of popping, kind of different. So I had to let things dry in between again and again. I couldn't go over the painting too much with my blow dryer because of the masking fluid. It will tear the paper a lot if you have too much heat on it. I'm having a little peelage and tearing in the end, but it was manageable. But I couldn't go on top with my blow dryer too much. Those paintings with masking fluids just take a little longer because you have to maybe naturally let things, or air dry things, not naturally dry, but air dry things. And you might get a little impatient. Well, I do. And it depends also on the kind of paper you're using with the masking fluid. For example, I'm using one that is very high in fiber, very natural, almost like do you know those bamboo kind of papers, very thin papers? That's like the feel or the touch of of the paper that I'm painting on. It's one of my favorite watercolor papers, but you have to be very careful with the masking fluid. So I'm at this point just going around shading things using indigo and a dark brown to do so, and just giving all of it a little more dimension and depth. Just blending everything together with my water brush, creating shadows, you know, like you do. I'm mostly feathering in things. That's something I like to do when it comes to shading, and where there's no clear light source on a picture or painting, drawing, all of that. Just making it look nice. And then it's already time to paint in the ground. She's gonna get a black ground as well. She is, I think, also in an urban setting, just like the mercenary was. And also it fits very well with the dark gray, blue, purple background, and with the main colors I used on her, like the black cloak and such. Cleaning up some of the edges, of pulling the pigment towards the character where I hadn't painted very cleanly, and then it was time to peel off the masking fluid, and this is where you can see that paper is ripping a bit. It's not too bad though. I'm able to mask it pretty well with paint and just peeling some of the paper off and making it a little smoother and such. So that was definitely fine for me. The bigger the surface, the more likely the paper is to rip. So on these very small bits here on the left hand side, I had no ripping at all. Cleaning off my desk, because I hate having those fluid plasticky kind of things there. So I had to clean it off before moving on with painting, and I'm using very light blues to kind of color that magical, mystical fog or dust, like the sparks that come out of her hand when she's doing some magic. And I used ultramarine blue, I think it was, for the bigger part here. I'm gonna add some more shades of blue and deepening up some of the parts, and then let it fade into this very light blue. I'm also going to use some of the indigo, for example, just to give this fog, or whatever you want to call it, that magical thing, a little more dimension and a little more depth. So for example, I'm going in with a cyan blue here and adding another layer, doing the same on her clothes and her hand, like where the magic is sparking, all those little dots. And once I had that down, I dried it off first and then added some more color and also used white. So first of all, indigo, because indigo, adding just somewhat of a shadow. It's not really a shadow, but you know, where things are more intense, have more density, I'm adding a little bit of indigo just to indicate that. But what made the big difference for me is actually the next step, which is using white watercolor and splatter it across the painting to have like magical sparks and such, you know. I'm also gonna add a few of those white drops then in a minute with gel pen, and add a little silver gel pen to Bellatrix to well, give her a little bit of oomph and sophistication and show off her riches. But first the watercolor. So it's just tapping against a brush where I have a lot of water in it and have just diluted white watercolor paint splattered around. I really like that for a couple of things. For one, anything that is a night sky, so with stars and such. But I also like it for indicating magic. I had to let it dry for a bit, like air dry, before I went in with my blow dryer, because I didn't want those droplets to become like streaks or anything. And when you have a lot of air pushing against watercolor, well, you might know that from the car wash. They don't stay like droplets, they go into streaks, and I didn't want that. So I had to wait for a bit, drink a sip of tea or 2 or 3, and then only move on to the blow dryer and all the details with the gel pens. But yeah, that's been my painting for today. I hope you enjoyed. There's one more of that series coming in 2 weeks, and then I'm moving on to other painting stuff. I hope you enjoyed watching along. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And in case you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome to the channel. I would love for you to subscribe and peruse the channel. There's lots of art videos, coloring videos, there's board game videos and vlogs, so different kinds of things in case you're interested. If you have kids at home who like to paint or draw or learn drawing and painting and speak German, I do have a kids channel. It's called Pinselgeschichten Junior, where you can find different kinds of videos as well if you want to take a look at that. And I hope you got inspired and liked what you saw. The blog post is up at 10 a.m. Central European time. The link to my webpage is in the description box below, so you can check it out. And I'm gonna see you in 2 weeks. Take good care. Bye.